We'll do it live.
Now we're live. Erin Kennedy. The general craziness of it, the impact on your life.
We have gone through so many stories and we said, you know what? This should not be kept to the two of us.
Not kept to the two of us anymore, is it?
Hi, Megan.
Hi, how are you, Erin?
I am fired up today. I am fired up.
Yeah, same. I was fired.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
I know.
So let's dive right in. I'm sure a lot of people saw it come across your news feed, maybe on Instagram yesterday. There was an anchor in New York who just kind of had a terrible show. And she was slurring her words and has since taken a leave of absence / been suspended. And there's talk of whether or not she was intoxicated at work. She had just lost her father. She was exhausted. We have lots of feelings and lots of opinions on this, Megan. And I think that this totally fits under our umbrella of broken news.
Yes. And it's important that we set the stage so that you understand kind of what these are all, guesses on our part, but we're in the industry long enough to kind of know, you inherently know some things. So she's in Albany, New York, which is not a giant market, but it's not a tiny market. It's one where you're probably not having to have that extra job, but just barely, I suspect.
Right.
Right. So you may or may not have an agent at this point to support you, to help you. I don't know how long she was in place in the market, but as we've discussed before, when you have life issues and you're in the TV business, there is not the overarching feeling that they care.
Right. Because that's often how it plays out.
Yeah.
Just in case people haven't seen it, and we are not showing this to, indulge in our demons, but I think it's just important so that people know where she was coming from. So real quick, we're going to play a little clip. Give me 1 second here.
Good afternoon. Like I was telling you this morning, if you watched us this morning, starting at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., I told you, you know what, today, what a beautiful day outside. It is just amazing. And so moving on tonight is we have to tell you also, like other news that's happening in the area. And
Where'd you
It's
go?
losing my Wi-Fi.
Oh,
Sorry.
well, let's just keep going because quite frankly, this is what happens on live TV.
Yes. So
Often. And then you have to pivot and deal with it. But I think the point of what we're looking at here, okay, is that she was obviously not at the top of her game. But what's going on behind the scenes that has created this storm and this tornado of stuff that she now has to deal with on the national media front because she had a bad day on TV?
Okay. So as we mentioned, her father had just died. She was pulling doubles, which is common because it was a weekend. Oftentimes, and in fact, there are shifts in TV news where you just work the weekend and one day. You come in the mornings, you maybe go home and have a lunch, and then you do the evening shows, and then you do it again the very next day. So she was filling in. She said she was exhausted. She's still grieving for her father's death. And Megan, what really fires me up about this is I feel like I had days like that where I was not well, right? I was definitely having long periods where I would have to take NyQuil to fall asleep. And then that was like, maybe it was 2 hours before I got up next. So then the next morning I felt terrible because I still knew I had NyQuil in my body. And then you're drinking coffee on top of that. And I know that I was sick. So I mean, my heart goes out to her because I feel like while I didn't have any days where it was terrible, it was definitely days when I was not feeling good and still expected to be 100% for everyone.
Yeah, that was every day. It didn't matter if you were feeling good or not. You could have 105-degree fever, but if your voice still sounded okay, then it was kind of oh, just keep it going. Just hang through the end of the show. And then you can take tomorrow off if you don't feel good like that. But the only reason that they would send us home really is if you sounded so bad that it was hard to watch and listen to. Otherwise you were expected to be there. And I think when you think about things that happen in your life, the death of loved ones, Maybe your marriage is breaking up. Maybe you're worried about a kid for some reason. It could be any million different things in your real life that are so impactful and so hurtful. You still have to go there and say things that make sense and act like nothing's wrong. And sometimes you just can't freaking do it. It's too
Yes,
much,
that is true.
right? Like
You
there's
you
a
brought up
level.
Yes, you brought up two really important points that I want to touch on here. I don't know about you, but there was another story with some news anchor who again came on air and was a hot mess and then later said it was allergy medication. I actually had a pact. I don't know, Megan. I cannot remember if it was in Chicago or another market with somebody where I said, if I ever look like this, please pull me aside. Tell me, where was that person? Where was her advocate in that newsroom who said, you cannot go on air right now? You need to go home.
I don't know. I don't know. And look, we don't know the background story behind
Right.
what had happened. We don't know, right? Like we don't know what this full picture was. So we're not speaking to whether or not she had done something she shouldn't have done or not, or she was exhausted or she wasn't, because we can't say. We don't know. What we
Right.
do know is when you're working in that business, even if you're in the point in the deepest, darkest moment of your life, if you're supposed to be on shift, your butt has to be there, even if you're not mentally capable of being there. And so you go and you pray to God that you're going to be able to get through the show and that something like that doesn't happen. But sometimes it's just not good. There were days where I was on the air where I was worried about something, distracted with something, and literally I don't think I made any sense. There were days like that for me. There were days like that for you. There were days where literally
Yes.
we'd be like this behind the scenes, like, oh, I can't make it. But you don't
Right.
have that opportunity. You don't have that opportunity to not be okay.
Right. You don't. And especially on a weekend, which is generally a skeleton crew, and you worry that if you don't show up, they're going to have to tap maybe just one other person who's next in line, and then you're going to shortchange everybody else. And I feel like newsrooms do create this great team atmosphere where you're all in it together, right? So you don't want to put your burden on somebody else. But like I said, I am pained for a couple reasons because Megan, if I had seen you come in like that someday, I would have said, Megan, I am concerned for you right now. I think that you need to step back. So that makes my heart sad. But then also, I do think that this happens in newsrooms. And again, we are not saying anything about that particular newsroom where people are okay with watching other people fail. You know?
Oh, there's a big part of that. It's
Right.
almost like, oh my God, the ratings on this are going to be crazy. The attention we're going to get from this is going to be crazy.
Or I never
There's
liked
that.
her. I never liked her.
Yes.
There's her nail in the coffin.
Yeah. Oh, just let her hang herself because then maybe I can take
Right.
her spot. I mean, and
Right.
it's sick and twisted, honestly. It really is, because there is this very odd moment when you're in TV. And quite frankly, this is why I decided to do the weather instead of be a reporter or something, Erin, because I didn't feel capable of talking to people in those deepest, darkest moments and of being able to divide that line between work and real person. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I'm way too much empathy's going on here where there just was no way in hell. So when I look at that and I think about people who are reporters, like somebody falls and it's like good TV, like, do you continue covering the accident that just happened before you, or do you drop the mic and run to help them? You have to have that question in your mind in that moment. It's not like the immediate, I'm going to help. It's like, crap, if I do that, I'm going to walk away from my live shot. Is that going to be good TV, or am I going to get in trouble from that? Like, you have to think about those things and have that internal conversation. So like when you're watching somebody like that and something's going on, you may be thinking that same thing. Like, is this good for me, bad for me? Like, if I interrupt, is that actually going to like reflect poorly on me? Am I going to get in trouble for stepping in? You don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Coming back to like working from a point of reference where this is almost an abusive relationship. And it's like, well, I don't want to get involved because then their eyes will be on me. And I certainly don't want to be, stepping in between. So yes, it is very complicated, which is why we just want to encourage everybody during this moment to grant her some grace. Right?
Yeah, because we don't know, do we? We don't know if she was exhausted and mourning her father. Well, we do know she probably was exhausted. We do know that her father had just passed away. We do know all these things. What we don't know is how much time she was given to grieve. And quite frankly, you can't put a number on that. sometimes people need more time than other people need. And you can't put like a 2-week grievance thing. Or I remember in my career in the past, I had like I think it was a great aunt that passed away. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to take vacation days for that funeral because it wasn't within the borders of where you could actually get time off. But she was very important to me. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Right.
you just never
No,
know
I
how
remember
things are
that.
treated.
It's in the contracts. It's like an immediate family member, I want to say is like a week or two. A grandparent is half of that. And like, then there's nothing else.
So what? Right? What if your best friend dies? Like, oh, you can just take some vacation for that or something. What?
That's when you hope you have a sympathetic news director.
You hope, and sometimes you do, and sometimes they understand. But if they're not, or if they don't like you, or if they're ready to kick you to the curb, they're going to hope this is going to mean you leave, or they'll have cause to get rid of you potentially. Right? She didn't come back.
It's been done. Yes.
Yes.
So I don't think that there's more to say on this. We just
No.
want to, again, peel back the curtain as people watch this. And it is so very easy to assume that we know what's going on and just say that she, doesn't deserve her job or was out of line. And we know there are many, many layers behind this.
So many layers. You remember that scene from Shrek where he's like, it's like an onion. That's
just keep
what
crying.
it is. And the real story is that very little weird part that you don't know what to do with when you cut the onion. And then you're like,
I
that
still
shit's
eat it.
weird. Do you eat it? But like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's where the truth is. And that's where the core is. And that's part of journalism too, by the way. And it's
Mhm.
interesting that people who were covering this without knowing the full story are promoting it the way they are to get clicks now without really truly knowing the full picture. And that's part of
Mhm.
what's happened to
Mhm.
this industry, isn't it? Because there was a day where you would never have covered anything unless you really did know the yes, the no, the why, and the explanation encompassing the whole picture.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
just a clickbait now. Watch this anchor have a bad moment on
Right.
TV.
Right. Right. When was the last time an accountant had a really bad day at work and it was on the Daily Mail?
Yeah, I don't know, but I wouldn't click it if it was.
All right.
Right.
So, in defense of granting each other grace, that is it for now. Right, Megan?
Mwah, yes.
Bye.
Yep.